Hi, welcome to the Andrew Buckle book review of Marvel. This is by Alex Ross. Brilliant cover, I love that cover. And it's from Marvel Comics. Just come out in June 2021. 196 pages, so slightly bigger. Well, twice the size of the general sort of Treasury Edition ones. So what does it include? Well, it includes Marvel 1 to 6. Now, I didn't buy the original comic, so I can't compare. Obviously, you can see it's quite a size. It's a standard size comic. It's much bigger than that. And the quality of the book is superb all the way through. Lovely glossy paper, and the quality of the art is absolutely superb all the way. Very crisp, very decent all the way through. So it hasn't been sort of like diminished by being increased in size. I think it's just, I love Treasury Editions. Treasury Editions back in the 70s were always a pleasure to get. They brought out quite a few. I didn't get them all, but I got quite a lot of them and I loved them. And it was great to see that they brought out these Treasury Editions. Again, of course, they're not the same. They never will be the same. They're never going to be exactly as the Spider-Man one or the Conan one that back then. However, what have you got? You've got all the various people there. And probably couldn't see that, but there's a load of people involved. I mean, there are just lots and lots. Lucio Purio and Mark Waid, Adam Hughes, Gene Ha. I mean, there's just lots. Just loads and loads of people all the way through this. And yes, it just actually does give all the, I'm just going to say, gives all the names there. Should be able to make those out. And you got an introduction, a very brief introduction by Alex Ross. I had to say it's very hard to find because of the title. Marvel is not the best of title. I mean, obviously it sells it. Marvel, that's what it is. However, of course, there's thousands of things called Marvel. Marvel what's that? Marvel this, Marvel that. They're obviously confused with Marvels, of course, which he produced as well. And it does make it very hard. So if you even search for Alex Ross Marvel, you end up with, of course, lots of Marvels and other things. So it does, you should be able to find it, but it certainly wasn't the easiest one to come across, certainly for quite a long period of time. Obviously, once it's come out, I think it might be easier. However, the story starts with, of course, the usual classic. They always do. I don't know why. They always have to put the classic Human Torch. And also, one minor criticism before I go further is some of the characters here. You've got some like, obviously, Rawhide Kid, Kid Colt, whatever. Some of the characters, and obviously some certainly on the back, they hardly appear at all. Iron Man hardly appears at all. And yet he's obviously got a very prominent part of the cover, which is slightly odd. But anyway, it's a mere quibble on that one. But Nightmare is the man, who doesn't appear on the front cover or anything to do with Nightmare. You'd think they would have put that. Maybe that just wouldn't have sold the book so well. But you got Nightmare. Of course, one of the the earliest villain of Doctor Strange. And you've got here a really brilliant start sequence. I'm not going to spoil it because that is just awesome. Absolutely the Nightmare sort of realm. Just great. However, the stories in between, there's no real sort of, I don't think there's any sort of like moving the story forward in any way. Unless there was. I don't know. I didn't read into that, I must admit. That's... But obviously everyone's dreaming. I assume these are all dream sequences because there's things happening in them that don't really make much sense in a normal thing. So it's clearly characters turn up, disappear, etc., etc. And you've got Green Goblin, but you've got Spider-Man there. So you've got the Spider-Man story, first one. And then you've obviously got MJ there. And you've got, then you get into, this is a real sort of throwback style. Well, saying that, it always gives that impression of being a throwback style, and yet at the same time, it doesn't really sort of half looks, it's a sort of, yeah. But however, it's obviously got all the original Avengers, obviously Captain America. Of course, Hulk was an original member back in issue 1 and sort of issue 2. And then, of course, he left, and then you got the Hulk coming back, of course. And again, it's a bit of a dream sequence. You've got some great appearances, various characters, which I'm not going to spoil. And of course, what happens with this book, you've got Nightmare turning up quite a few times. There's a page or two every couple of, about 10, 15 pages. There's a bit more of the Nightmare. But again, I don't really feel that there's a real sort of, dynamic sort of in the story. You got him talking, obviously, with the Sorcerer Supreme. But that's about it. There's not really much else happening. There's some nice sequences where he shows, sort of other creatures that he's sort of manipulating. He's got this power over. But beyond that, I didn't really feel that storyline was, other than it was just a nice sort of arc over the whole thing. But you got the X-Men, just great. Obviously that period of the X-Men where they're just sort of starting. You've got Sunfire, you've got obviously obviously Wolverine, they're just not settling in as a team at this point. And you guys, it's really good. Polaris, etc. And then you've got, this one's quite an odd one. The Demon one, this one, Leave the Demon. That is very odd with Spidey and the Thing, as well as the Silver Surfer, etc. and Doctor Doom, etc. And also you've got this very odd one here, which is lovely drawn. Actually, virtually every one of these are brilliantly drawn. I think they're just superb. Now, I'm not saying that I loved every single story, but they're decent enough. And you've got the Vision there. And that's a very odd one. We're sort of looking at, very strange. Very, very strange. However, this is another issue that's like, you've got here, you've got a lovely one there. You've got Iron Fist and Power Man, or Luke Cage. They didn't appear. I mean, they're not in the stories. So it's really weird. Why did they put them on the cover? I mean, it's fine putting them on the cover, I have no problem. But they're literally, they're not in the book. So if you're buying the book, obviously this was obviously the comic, but you get in the comic and you suddenly find, well, where's Iron Fist and Power Man? Were they intended to be in the book? You got Submariner. I love this one, the Submariner one. That's just a lovely little oddball story. Sort of a very humorous Submariner for a change. It's got a bit of, very, very, quite unusual. Sort of doing some gymnastic exercises, which is just a strange. And of course, it's great with anyway, not going to spoil that bit. You got here, this is a nice little sequence here. You got the Watcher, which is, I think, it's really good. The beginnings, and it's got sort of that artistic creativity. And there's some lovely crayon, lipstick, ink, etc. And you've got this young kid, obviously drawing and seeing all the cartoons. I think that's just beautiful. I just thoroughly. Many children grow out of this mark-making phase. Well, I never did. I must admit, I still do it all the time. Always drawing. I love drawing. Will I be any good at it? Probably not, but I do enjoy doing it. However, you've got a lovely sequence. Obviously, you've got to have Amazing Fantasy in there, of course. You've got all those sorts of things. And of course, there's some very unusual sequence here. And again, there's some, I'm not going to spoil the end. That's really good, that bit. And this is a real great one, Black Widow one. I mean, that is just the honeymoon. That's just completely, near enough does actually fit with a 1940s sort of story, because they really had some really oddball stories back in the 1940s. Though obviously it's nothing like the 1940s, but it's got that sort of feel that, they really didn't seem, it's not fitted in with any sort of standard sort of sequence of Marvel. And poor old Red Skull, great. However, great end bit here. I mean, I love the artwork. Alex Ross, when Alex Ross kicks in, there's some beautiful, again, another sequence there. That's just totally superb. You've got variant covers as well, which is really nice. You've got another variant. Again, lots of these people, they just don't appear in the book. You've got the cover here, and I think, let's say, it would have been disappointing if you bought the comic. You'd be thinking, oh, especially if you're a fan of Deadpool. You'd be thinking, oh, Deadpool, Deadpool, get it? Oh, Deadpool's not in it. That's very strange. This is, I mean, you got, that's great. See, that's an unusual world where they've got sort of this, creatures, very strange, but it's very enjoyable story. But they're not connected. There's no real connection, even though, of course, you've got Nightmare overall. These are obviously assumed nightmares, but does it push? That sequence with Silver Surfer is superb, and I don't want to show that because, again, I don't want to spoil the book. But this is lovely. This is a fun sequence. I love this one. This is sort of all the horror stories of the monster stories in the 1950s, late 50s. And you've got Dr. Drum. Actually, I read that wrong first when I first got it. So I got sort of the Chronicles of Dr. Doom, and I saw Chronicles of Dr. Doom. I was thinking, where's Dr. Doom? And then, of course, it was Dr. Drum, whoever. Top Secret Sanctum. And you've got all the monsters, and they all come back, but they're all sort of like wandering through things. They're not really sort of, you've got right, etc., etc. It's a fun story, and I just think that's just lovely. Rombu, they had stupid names, but it's nicely finished off as well. It's just really well done, and I think quite a lot of these stories will bring a nice smile at the end when you read them. This is a very unusual story. A very powerful story, and very weirdly done as well. You got the artwork, very strange, but still very effective in pencil, coloured pencils. Or was it ink? I don't know. But anyway, it looked like coloured pencils, but it still is pretty good. I think it's this beautiful little story. And then you've got that lovely variant cover. Actually, the variant cover would have made more sense because they at least appeared in the story, whereas the other characters on the front cover didn't appear in the stories. Then you've got another one. I mean, older Nightmare. Nightmare is amazing, and they don't really use Nightmare particularly well. I always think that he's just a character that could be used a lot more. I mean, like Sandman, basically Sandman. And yet somehow he's sort of like neglected, he's sort of pushed off the side. You know, he's always been defeated very easily. I always think, oh dear. However, this is a good story as well. Wong, good old, yeah, and it's a real nice, charming, happy, real pleasant story, and it's good to see him get a central role because quite often, obviously, he's a minor character. He sort of he's in the background, does the laundry or whatever. He's doing the food and things. There's some lovely sequence where he talks about some food at a particular restaurant, and that's quite good. Well, actually, it's very good, and it's just a nice ending as well. Sgt Fury turns up as well, and that's a real good story with old Cap, of course. That's a really. Now, what's the next? Oh, there's that sequence there. Oh, there's some good bits even in that, and there's a real great ending to that story as well. And this is superb. Of course, you know the artwork from Perillo, isn't it? Perillo, I can never say his name. My apologies, Lucio Perillo. Just absolutely awesome. Very, very dynamic, and actually quite an interesting look into the Wolverine. Not so much, obviously, that Hulk's in the story, but in a sense, I suppose it's a bit the Hulk 181. Of course, the classic thing. There's a lot of those sort of things. That's really good one. Ah, look at that cover. That cover is just so awesome. That is a superb cover. And this one's great. Real garish, but brilliant. Nick Fury and S.H.I.E.L.D., the one-eyed Gambit. Just super, super garish colours. All the way MODOK, you've got various characters. Sort of like very 60s. Just brilliant. Look at that. Just colours. Very, not really Stranko. Because I don't really think Stranko. I mean, he obviously was a lot of experimentation, but I don't recall particularly garish colours in that respect. It was a lot of pop art, sort of style, black and white and those sort of things. But it's good. It's good. I loved the ending as well. The ending's great. And this is a great one as well. Silver Surfer. I mean, the Silver Surfer, when he's done like this with that sort of silvery, sort of just beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. You can obviously see all the reflections there. It's just, great pictures on that. Let's go to Nick. And this is another one that's really good. No, I can't. That's the end of the book. That's really good. It's a good ending as well. It's all resolved, of course, in a typical standard. But it's great. I loved it. Absolutely. Would I say that it's a masterpiece? It could have been a masterpiece. I think it was certainly, for me, one of those ones that was a bit bouncing along, bits and bits. But overall, I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I read it fairly quickly. It's going to be one that I will definitely go back and reread, which is, of course, a key thing. Sometimes you get a comic and you think, you know what, I'm never going to read that ever again. But this one, I definitely will. Because I love the artwork. The artwork was the thing that sold it to me, of course. When I saw another review, and I thought, wow, the artwork. And it certainly did not disappoint into the artwork. Some unusual, some very unusual artwork. But I mean, I think just the colours and maybe other people might turn around and say, I don't think they're a bit too garish, the colours. They are. It's very, very in your face, the colours, the colour scheme. Obviously some muted ones. You've got enough muted one there. But it's just very impressive. And also, you've got some really good extras at the back, which I always love. I love all the various there, and that's the Vision Unfazed, page 8 process. It says there, best of us, Adam Hughes, and also some other extras. I mean, just great. I just love extras at the back of the book. It's always just fascinating seeing the artwork. You think, wow. Sometimes, of course, you look at it and you think, you know what, that'd probably be better if they brought out a black and white version of this with all these original things. I'd probably buy that as well. In fact, I would buy it. I'm quite certain. I go, ooh, sketch one of this. So maybe they might bring out, as long as they make the name a bit more, I think, Marvel Sketch Edition or something, because it's going to be hard to find. However, I think that's it. And they've also got some alternative covers, and of course, that they were obviously unused cover concepts and things. Well, this is a very unusual book. It does include a limited amount of Golden Age Black Widow. I'm not certain why, but why not? I think it would be nice to see the Golden Age Black Widow come back a few more times. I think it would be an interesting character to bring back. Well, dreams, nightmares, This is definitely not a dream or nightmare. I think it's an absolutely superb volume. Though, of course, one thing that I would suggest also, if you're collecting these things, it has a potential because it's a flexi cover. I think flexi covers always have a tendency to bend there, sort of get very damaged there. I don't know why, because they always sort of, maybe there's a special technique for turning the pages for them. Maybe not holding them like this probably is one of them. But also I've noticed quite a few dents in it. And also, if you get this delivered to you, put through the door, I would suggest maybe a sort of cushion or something so it doesn't fall on the floor, because our tendency, of course, is it goes very badly damaged on the corners, and you can see damage there as well. I think this book is going to be one that's going to have a bit of damage, and I can feel it there. Just, you probably can't see it in the light, but it's got a bit of damage on the thing. The bend there, just always bends. And I've got lots of flexi covers, and they all suffer the same thing, that bend at that point. And I think maybe in 30 or 40 years' time you might look at it and go, I hope not. But that's just an issue that maybe you might be to consider. But I think this is just lovely. As a Treasury Edition, I think this is just a joy. This is one. Now, I always think to myself, if only Marvel would bring out one like this at Christmas time. Christmas edition, 196 pages in this sort of format, with all different stories, Christmas stories, all with the characters doing sort of like a dream sequence, maybe Santa Claus or something, dream sequence. But it would be just brilliant. I would love to see it again. I love the old Marvel holiday grab bag ones. They were just great. And so this one sort of reminds me of that in many ways. So it wasn't one complete story, even though it did have Nightmare. I didn't really feel that it was a complete for me. But it's good, very good, totally recommended, superb and all that. I loved it.